All right, everyone, welcome to Simply Bitcoin. We break down the news from Twitter, the daily fails, meme review, software releases, hardware releases, the websites by plebes or plebs. And joining us today, the very special guest, we've got Erick Yakes, who's a fellow Bitcoiner and author of the book, The Seventh Property. He's joining us, and you know where we're going first, though, before he comes into the conversation. We're checking out the numbers. Let's do it.
Number time!
At the time of this recording, the block height is 692,208. The Bitcoin price, 32,220. Chain rewrite days, 1,064.
Dude, stop right there. We're celebrating. Okay? I know it's not an all-time high price, okay? All right? But Satoshi has had blue balls, and the lightning capacity just keeps going up. So I think it's justified, Phil. I don't know. Anyways, sorry.
No, you might be right. He's feeling good. Anyways,
he's feeling good.
He's got a reason to feel good. Total public lightning capacity, 1,939.22. Another all-time high today. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 5.13%, and sats per dollar, 3,103.
Man,
so yeah, we're
dude.
just, 30's the new 10. 30's the new 10.
Dude, that makes me so bullish, man. Phil, we were stuck at 1,000 BTC lightning capacity for I don't know how long, and this year just...
Yep.
It's awesome, dude. Awesome. But anyways, Phil, it's time for it.
The daily fail. Saw this yesterday. Brought me back some memories from 2017, 2018 when I first saw this, this asshat shill Unicoin Gold. Anyways, I'm not going to make everybody watch this whole thing because it's pretty cringe, but we'll start it off, okay? Start it off. So, I mean, I don't think there's nobody that doesn't know that this is Ashton Kutcher, so here we go.
Hey, babe.
Yeah.
What's crypto?
It's digital currency.
Hey, babe.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's blockchain?
I bet you he doesn't even know the fucking answers to these questions anyways.
Oh.
It's, what information is stored on.
Hey, babe.
Yeah.
Okay. We got enough of that, all right? So he goes through this whole stupid thing and obviously shilling some garbage, NFTs, blah, blah, blah. Wonderful. Okay, so he's back. He's shilling garbage. But let's go back in time and let's take a look at what ended up happening with Unicoin Gold, because I think this is important, right? This is important to know because I'm pretty sure that this is the same place we're going to again. Cuban and Ashton Kutcher backed crypto firm to pay SEC fine for illegal sale of securities. Oh my God, what a shock. It was a scam. What a thought. What ended up happening? Unicoin raised 31 million. I contributed like $500 to that. Or 2,000, I don't remember anymore. Anyways, Unicoin raised 31 million via an initial coin offering in 2017. Unicoin reached a settlement with the SEC without admitting or denying the charges, of course, right? And there you go. This is the best part. The token, okay, the price peaked at $2 in 2017. And they're saying that it's only worth a penny now, but they're actually being very nice because you can't actually trade this garbage. Okay, so it's not even worth a penny. Not that it really matters because it's not going to be money anyways. Okay, so here's what actually ended up happening, right? This is why they were able to just, never confirm or deny. The gaming startup Unicoin has agreed to pay a fine of $6 million to the SEC. Investments that came from Mark Cuban and Ashton Kutcher. And look at this, Anthony Delorio, co-founder of Ethereum. Looks like somebody knows how to play the scam game, right? Hey, isn't that interesting? And don't get me wrong, we've seen some pretty interesting tweets about, from Vitalik going back and forth with some other devs on how to shill some new token crap that is never going to be money.
What was it? What was it that Vitalik said? Stop the trading. Stop the trading. Dude, so yeah, I mean, look, is another example of just, these influencers that have no idea. They're still living in the fiat matrix, right? And they have no idea what the fuck they're shilling. They think it's like fun and they think whatever. And of course, like, they get paid before everybody else, so it's like they're clearly used for their platforms. And the one that I always remember, Phil, because that was just such a hilarious fail, is the kids token. the same thing. It's the same. So instead of Mark Cuban and Ashton Kutcher, they just use like younger influencers, but it's all the same garbage, bro. It's just to literally get you to part away from your Bitcoin. Like that's the whole point of these scams. And yeah, another amazing fail. But I want to get Erick's thoughts.
Yeah, have you guys seen Dude, Where's My Car?
Yeah, I love that.
Sure.
Yeah, I fucking love that movie, dude. That's what I think about that video.
Okay, straight.
You know what though? I mean that movie showed a great range of his acting capabilities.
Oh yeah, that's all time Ashton Kutcher. No, I mean he's yeah, I mean there's a ton of scams always going around like that. We're at the peak market right now, and we're going to be seeing more and more of that type of stuff going around. But I mean, I'm not a fan of, the marketing strategies that are employed by a lot of people. I like to keep the mindset that a lot of that's going to get shifted out in the long run. And it's good that there's people, on both sides who are kind of like, trying to make that prevalent for a lot of different people who are, unaware and don't understand exactly what's going on. But yeah, I think that it's important to, just maintain that right perspective and take your time, understand what's going on behind the scenes, put the work in, and, make sure you don't get caught up too much by a lot of these marketing ploys.
Absolutely.
Preach.
Yeah. Amen. Guys, just stick to the orange pill, aka Bitcoin. I know Phil's still getting mad. I see his face. I'm sorry, Phil. It's good. It's good TV. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily Meme Review.
All right, everybody. The meme for today is brought to us by fellow plebe. You can go follow him at Zend871501009. Dennis.hodl. Anyways, definitely a fellow plebe. Let's check out the meme. Banks with huge data centers. My Raspberry Pi. Good. It's good. It's good. It's it's one of those. Anyways, I'm gonna give that meme an ostrich egg. What about you, Phil?
You just have that?
Yeah,
I just have that at your desk, an ostrich. Okay.
I bought one just for the meme review.
It's just funny. It's like, I'm gonna get the. It's like it's just here. Anyways, yeah, no, that's very insiderish meme, right? Very insiderish, and like you gotta. It was worth a chuckle, and for that I am giving it a pencil torch.
Okay. That's a noble score.
Right?
It's a noble score. But Eric, what would you give that meme?
Well, first question, is that dude in the pink, is he the guy from Real Bros of Simi Valley? Do you guys know?
I don't know, but that's a very good question.
Oh, well, I think it's kind of a mid-grade meme, but if it's that guy, then I don't want to shit on that guy. I like that guy a lot.
So any score?
We'll give it a 7.
7. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Numbers are back. All right.
Numbers are back.
Solid.
Yeah.
I like it. 7 out of 10. Okay. Good scores. An ostrich edge
Nice.
that I just happen to have. A pencil torch. And a 7 out of 10. Good scores. Anyways, guys, do you agree with their scores? Do you disagree? Let us know down in the comments. And of course, join our Telegram group. Drop us some links to memes because it's a meme review. Anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily News, sponsored by
Crypto Cloaks.
Seem pretty confident that inflation is temporary, but if you're pumping all of this money into the economy, couldn't that add to...
No, look, here's the deal. Moody's today, when a Wall Street firm, not some liberal think tank, said if we pass the other two things I'm trying to get done, we will in fact reduce inflation. Reduce inflation. Reduce inflation.
All right, I can't hear that anymore.
Did he just skip on himself?
I don't know, dude. He just said that printing more money is going to reduce inflation.
Sure did.
And it looks like it's not only the U.S. It looks like the European Central Bank. Our buddy Christine Lagarde has the same feelings. Check out this newsletter from CNN. How massive it was. I guess it was an announcement. The ECB has purchased $1.2 trillion. 1.2 trillion euros in bonds since March 2020 as part of its pandemic emergency response program. But more is on the way. The central bank continues to snap up bonds at a rate of 80 billion euros a month in the name of pandemic relief, with total purchases at 1.85 trillion euros authorized under the program. I don't know where all this is coming from. The ECB announced earlier this month that it had abandoned its old policy of targeting inflation of below but close to 2%, a goal that many investors and economists found vague and confusing. I wonder why. Instead, the new look ECB will pursue inflation of 2% in the medium term, and officials will have room to overshoot the target if needed. I'm going to repeat the last part. Officials will have room to overshoot the target if needed. Right. And like, again, like, you know, everyone's like, nothing's going to happen. I'm just going to show this image that I show like 4 times a week just to reemphasize the fact that this thing has literally gone parabolic. What the hell is going on with the world? And I want to ask our guest this question. But before I do, right, the reason I want to ask him, right, is that, man, you used to work in the belly of the beast. So you definitely have a unique insight into this. What are your thoughts, Eric?
Yeah, so I mean, you know, we weren't dealing with macro environments as much, but, you know, just generally familiar throughout a lot of my interest in the industry over time. It's a complicated question. So like you know, we see Biden earlier, and he's bringing up that, you know, inflation is going to go down for, you know, God knows whatever political reason he's trying to push after. But the question of what's going to be inflationary, if it's going to be deflationary, if it's going to be inflationary, if it's going to be stagflationary, is just subject to so many different variables. And, you know, monetary policy being a very massive piece of that. And if we are printing more money, then, you know, all else equal, we would expect that would be an inflationary thing. But the problem is like when you dig into the details and you kind of understand that fundamentally money is, you know, today tied to credit. The inflationary or deflationary aspects and outcomes that come from some of these things is it comes down to how much credit is being expanded at a current point in time. So like monetary policy is a big piece of that, but there's also a big private market piece going on. There's an international piece going on where people are more or less expanding credit, and asset values are going up or down in different areas. And because of that, it can affect, and you can't confidently be like, oh, you know, I know in the next few years that we will certainly have an inflationary environment within, you know, certain areas of the world. It's hard to totally opine on that. It's possible that we could be subject to large deflationary environments. And we kind of go back to like the Great Depression, which was like a great example of like the very first expansion of the monetary base, like major expansion, kind of similar. Back then, it was pretty similar to what we're going through now. You saw initial periods of inflation. You saw large crashes in deflation when productivity dropped off and you have asset values decline. And then that causes a credit contraction. And through that process, it's very deflationary for a short-term period of time. And then coming out of that, what happened? Well, we had a big power grab by the government. We had much more inflationary fiscal and monetary policy come out of that in the, you know, from World War II onward. So, and then we went.
So hold on. Go ahead. The big power grab by the government, that was FDR's term.
Right. Exactly.
That's what you're referencing.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. But one of the things that he did, right, that I think this time is different, because I agree with a lot of the things that you were saying, is that FDR confiscated the gold, right? So like Americans didn't have a way of opting out, but now they do, right? So wouldn't you think that changes the circumstances just a little bit?
I agree. So like what I'm getting around to is basically over, you know, the next few years, it's pretty hard to say. What I can say is I think long-term, because we have an alternative system and people can opt out into it now, I think long-term, yeah, we're going to see some sort of hyperinflationary environment that comes within the next decade. I don't know, but it's hard to be certain about all those things. But yeah, my take is there's a lot of variables that impact it. If you're debating these things with people who are kind of on the other side of things, which is like, I wrote my book to try to arm people with a very measured, multidimensional view of the arguments so that you can understand, well, if you're going to go talk to somebody who's versed in Keynesian economics, here's kind of their perspective and what they're going to take and how you can talk to them, as opposed to just being like, you know, yeah, inflation's coming and that's it. It's like you want to go into it and just say like, hey, you know, here's the other side. I get what you're saying, and I'm going to try to convince you otherwise based on facts.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're essentially, because of your experience in private equity, you kind of understand how the other side thinks, right? So you're kind of, I guess, arming Bitcoiners with the knowledge in order for them to take on those types of conversations. Is that?
I'd say like one of my key goals with the book is like when I came into this space, there's a lot of, and for great reason, there's a lot of literature out there that's very focused on, here's the Austrian economics, monetary theory, here's our take on banking, here's our taking on, kind of how history unfolded. And while I still have a lot of that information in my book, I also try to give that from a very measured perspective so that people can have that measured approach, and you're a much better salesman when you know what you're arguing against. And like, that was kind of the purpose of me creating it, is to kind of give the other side to people, make it much more obvious so that you can actually at a technical level have these discussions.
Fascinating. Amazing. Phil?
Yeah, so it just made me think though, who's your audience? Like, who's the target audience for your book?
It's just people like me. A lot of people like me, a lot of people who, might have a little bit, that's not exactly it, but like, people who come from like people with a financial background or like a business background, people who are like, okay, I have a little bit of understanding of economics. I have an understanding of finance to a degree. I'm uncertain about Bitcoin. And ultimately, when you hear arguments and people come into the space, and, they'll hear a lot of things like, oh, there's this morality piece to it. And there's a lot of people that are totally drawn into the space by that. And that's what gets them excited. There's also another group of people who are smart people, who will be valuable people. And if we're going to get on a hyper Bitcoin, if we're going to get on a Bitcoin standard at some point in the future, then everybody's got to come in. And like, those kind of people hear these arguments like, well, I don't give a shit about that. This is totally contrary to the financial theory I've been taught in school. And when you want to talk to those kind of people, I made a book where I say, here are some of the pitfalls that I fell into. Because when I first discovered Bitcoin, it was back in like 2015. I wrote it off for like, probably 2 or 3 years before one of my buddies kind of kept, bringing it up with me, because he was just really excited about the technology. And once I heard the freedom aspect, and I've always been very libertarian, once I kind of got that, that's what made me jump into it. And the whole reason I avoided it in the first place is I was just like, okay, well, it's a speculative investment. I can't measure what it's worth. I'm going to avoid that. I've kind of, where I went to school is out in Omaha, where Warren Buffett kind of, he wrote the book on value investing in that approach. And so it's not even that I wasn't like, oh, this is bad. I was just like, oh, well, if I can't measure it, there's no point in me even considering it. And my point is to kind of like, I start off the book making a very clear distinction for people. I'm like, most people view financial assets from the perspective of, discounting some sort of cash flows from the future. That's how we value pretty much everything. And if you're going to operate outside of that framework, it's hard because nothing like Bitcoin has emerged in a millennia. So people don't look at this perspective. They apply this perspective of market value to it, when really it should be a perspective of monetary value. And you have to break down and say like, okay, like, you've heard about like the functions of money, and like people in the news are like, here's store value and all these things. Oh, I've heard about there's some properties of money. Well, what's the difference between those two things? And then if you go read Safedean's Bitcoin Standard, he talks about, money across different scales and dimensions. So I started off, I'm just like, let me synthesize all that for you and show you how it all works together. And then how, if you apply this framework where you can say monetary value is determined by monetary properties that any good in the world can possess. And if you apply that qualitative assessment to Bitcoin, then it's very clear how it's superior form of money. And therefore we can apply a top-down analysis to it. And we can be like, okay, well, if it is the best form of money and it can't be controlled, then we can assume it will capture that market of money over time. How big is that market? Well, it's a market of everything. And then after that, you're just like, oh shit, I need to get into this industry.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Phil, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say, because I read when I was buying stocks and stuff like that, I read, the Warren Buffett way and the Intelligent Investor and stuff like that. So I'm obviously I was a huge fan of Warren Buffett. And when I first got into Bitcoin, that was, when I really started to go down the rabbit hole and tried to figure out what the value, right, how to determine its value. Right away, I was like, well, wait a second, this is not a stock. Right? Like, it doesn't have like free cash flow. It doesn't have like, earnings to book. So yeah, it was definitely a hump. It was a mental hurdle to get over, Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And you'll literally hear people say like, oh, I bought stock in Bitcoin yesterday. They think about it like that.
I know, it's horrible.
Yeah. What's fascinating to me, Eric, right, is that just your vocabulary, right? It reminds me a lot. I have two really, really good friends. I grew up with them. One works at Goldman. The other one works at JP Morgan. and they talk just like you, bro. But I've never seen them. That's the thing, though. I've never seen them break through, right? So you think that it was just you being libertarian that was finally, because one of the things that they always tell me, it's like, where it doesn't produce anything, there's no profit, right? That's what they always focus on, right?
Right,
And I'm like, guys, you don't understand what's going on here. I'm like, this is not an asset. This is not a traditional asset. You're looking at it wrong, and they just can't comprehend it. So I'm listening to you talk, and you remind me of them, like, exactly, right? And I'm like, whoa. How did that work? You know?
Yeah. So like, it was a gradual process, right? I wrote it off for a few years. It kind of kept popping up, and then, it was towards the end of 2016. My buddy just kept pushing it on me, and like, you showed me all these videos around how the technology works, and I was like, this is crazy and I don't understand it, but cool, man. And then like, he just kept talking about it, and I was kind of like, started reading into it a little bit, and then I can't even remember what it was, some of the first sources I came off of. I feel like it might have been just on Reddit or something, but it was like talking about the freedom enabling of the technology, and that's just what got me interested to start actually being like, all right, I'm going to spend some time reading about it. And then like, I remember, I was spending most of the time in my evenings just like, figuring out how it works. And I remember there was this paper written by a guy who was, I wish I remembered his name, but he was an ex-KKR guy and worked at McKinsey. And he was kind of breaking down the economics of that. And he was comparing it to Ethereum and how like trying to apply valuation models to it. And then that was kind of when I first got my gears turning that direction. Then I started getting into like quantity theory of money and how to like, back into some sort of top-down value based on that. And then over time, it was really just like starting to dig more into the history of money, reading different essays around that. Reading Saifedean's Bitcoin Standard was like the first more like broad holistic. It was kind of like little bits and pieces I had of the history of money.
Wait. What made you, I'm fascinating, dude. I'm fascinated right now because, dude, your vocabulary, I'm like, this guy worked in finance, right? Like, it's just so obvious. And like, man, you're the first one that I've seen break through. Like, I'm still confused. Like, what made you question that they were wrong in the first place? That something was broken with the money? Out of the legacy finance people that I've talked to, man, you are the first one to really break through. So my question to you is what, and again, you in your industry, you guys are one of the main benefactors from the money printer. The money printer hits you guys like relatively like on the top of the food chain, right? So it like, what made you start doubting? Like, how did that work, right? Because you're one of the like, I'm sorry, not you particular, but your industry benefits from the current system.
Well, it's okay. So like, I guess the best way to answer that would be like, I worked in, I'll just give you like quick overview of what I started. So I started at FTI Consulting, and we're like the largest restructuring group in the world. So like, we're kind of this weird area between management consulting and like investment banking. But like, basically we dealt with really shitty companies that were either like going into bankruptcy or on the decline. And through that process, I got a lot of exposure to like all the malinvestment that exists and all these really bad companies that are out there. And then, the fund that I went to go work for, we made a business. We bought distressed corporate carve-outs, which is like, if you are a large enterprise and you have this division that's performing pretty poorly and you want to get rid of it, then you want buyers to kind of specialize in buying that because you've taken a piece of a company and it doesn't have a back office and all this stuff. So we specialize in buying those. And you kind of see really quickly that there's these industries that are built full time on kind of like preserving these zombie companies that are just like, sloshing around the economy, and people are like moving them and breaking them up and putting them together and sucking money out of them. And it didn't seem like it was sustainable to me. And I think that digging into Bitcoin would ultimately make me like really take a turn on it. I was just like, this is inevitable. And when I realized that it was inevitable, that's when I was like, okay, time to start moving on this area.
Man, fascinating. I love talking to Bitcoiners, bro. All different stories. Phil, any closing thoughts?
Man, I got nothing on this.
This is
just a lot to reflect on, but I'm definitely going to check out your book, though.
Yeah, man.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Really appreciate your point of view. I think it's really cool.
Definitely. Phil, there was a software release today. Why don't you tell everybody about it?
Software releases. All right, it looks like we've got Seed Signer version 0.4.2 that was released, And that is an offline air-gapped signing device for less than $50. Down below in the show notes, check it out.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. All right, guys, that was our show. Before we go, I want to give a shout out to our guest. In fact, I'm not only going to give a shout out, I'm going to read a passage of his book. I swear to God, this blew my mind. This was like okay, I'm just going to read it. I'm going to shut up and read it. The proof of work algorithm is solved by generating a hash of the block header items that fall below the difficulty target. Because a hash function's output is random, the only way to produce a low enough number is by guessing. The difficulty target is used to increase or decrease the chance that a miner solves the proof of work algorithm. The lower the difficulty target is, the harder it becomes to solve because the range of possible answers is smaller. Bro. Wow. Incredible. You guys could definitely go pick up his book. It's called The Seventh Property, Bitcoin and the Revolution and the Monetary Revolution by Erick Yakes. It's up on Amazon. And of course, we're going to link it down in the link description. Guys, we hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, you know what to do. Smash that like button. And of course, if you want to continue hearing the Bitcoin news from the perspective of two plebs, definitely consider subscribing, and we'll see you tomorrow on the next episode of Simply Bitcoin.